Hey, Keto Freaks. In case you haven't heard, Richard Morris and I are turning the entire town of New London, Connecticut ketogenic in July 2017. Keto Fest isn't a conference. Conferences are for professionals. Festivals are for people. We will have some great speakers, yes, but also a pig roast, music, movies, cooking lessons, fitness lessons, bike tours, walking tours, and a whole lot of camaraderie among fellow Ketonians. Richard and I will both be there, as will many of our podcast guests and Facebook group admins. There's so much going on, I don't have time to tell you here. So go to ketofest.com and add your name to the mailing list so you'll know where to go and when in order to get your tickets. Keto Fest, real keto for real people. Welcome back to Two Keto Dudes. This is Carl Franklin from Connecticut in the United States. And in February 2016, I put myself on a ketogenic diet to take control of my metabolism. In 2.5 months, I managed to reverse all markers of type 2 diabetes with diet alone. As of now, I'm 70-ish pounds lighter with no signs of diabetes or heart disease.
Hi, I'm Richard Morris in Canberra, Australia. I've been on a ketogenic diet for over 2 years. When I started, I was very sick with complications from type 2 diabetes. Within 6 months of starting a ketogenic diet, all of my biomarkers of disease had disappeared. I've also lost about 70 pounds and have completely turned my health around.
And this show is a document of my progress through ketosis and Richard's experience thriving for years in nutritional ketosis.
Yeah.
And hopefully this might help a few people who are curious about this kind of dietary hacking.
Yeah, we're not doctors. We don't want to give anyone any medical advice, but we are keen to share our own experiences. We're actually both software developers, so we're not afraid of a little technical detail, are we, Carl?
Nah.
We've done some research into our own deranged metabolisms and the science behind them. We hope to share some of that research. Where possible, we intend to put links in the show notes to cite the research supporting any claims that we make.
And you'll probably work out pretty quickly that we're both foodies.
Yeah.
We love to cook and we love to eat. So we share the great food that we eat on this diet. In every episode, both of us share a recipe for an essential keto meal or a non-essential keto meal that we eat on a regular basis. So let's start podcast episode number 32. Female! Well, we'll explain that in a minute, but first, we do have one apology from last week.
What's that, Carl?
Yeah, Beverly sent me a private message in Facebook and said, first, Carl, thank you so much for the constant inspiration and keto leadership. I love the Facebook group and the podcast. It's such a source of information, guidance, comfort, fun, etc., yada, yada, yada.
Awesome.
I listened to the podcast Paying It Back this morning on my commute into work. I wanted to make one small correction.
Mm-hmm.
At the very end of your recipe, you and Richard discussed soy. You stated that soy/black soybeans contain gluten, which isn't correct.
Okay.
And I didn't know this.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Soy and soybeans are gluten-free. Soy sauce, however, is fermented with wheat, which is why it's on the gluten list.
Gotcha. Okay.
But most folks with gluten sensitivity or celiac, like myself, may find they have a soy sensitivity as well. I don't, but you never know. And then she gave us the source of this, and we will post a link to it.
Yeah.
The source of this information.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Beverly, thank you. This is exactly why we have errata and why we need to be called on things like this. The last thing we want to do is spread misinformation.
Yeah, totally, Carl. If anyone hears anything that they disagree with, please send us an email to dudes@twoketodudes.com and let us know.
Absolutely. So before we have our special guests on here, Richard, let's just quickly recap what a ketogenic diet is.
Sure. It's under 20 grams of carbohydrates, protein for maintenance, and energy from fat.
Right. Or any diet that gets you into a state of nutritional ketosis is really ketogenic.
That's right.
But those are the macro ratios that we follow. And I want to get through this real quickly. How did you go this week? How's it going with you?
Yeah, I had a good week. I've been working on our blog, blog.2keto.com, and I put a blog post up on fat deficit, which has got a calculator in it that shows how much fat you need to be able to eat, ironically, to be able to fast. But I've got all the science linked on there, and that's been our most popular post on the blog.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting ready for the next Zorn fast on the 22nd, and that's pretty much my week.
Awesome, Richard.
And so, how was your week, Carl?
Well, I actually had a monumental week, and I'll tell you why. On the 12th, the day after the last show came out of September, Kelly, my wife, and I quit drinking alcohol.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big change.
Big change. And it was because, we needed to do it together if we were going to do it. And there are multiple reasons why we needed to. Suffice it to say, I was at a point already where I could have given it up, and I knew that it wasn't good for me. So I just did.
Okay.
And she did too. So we're supporting each other. That turned out to be a really good decision. Weight started coming off a lot faster than it usually does.
Awesome.
So now I'm no nuts, no wine, no alcohol of any kind. And that is really making a huge difference. There's one other thing that I got to mention before we bring the girls on, which is, of course, last week there was this huge article that came out in all the major news media about this researcher who found these old documents from 1966 that show that the National Sugar Foundation or the Sugar Research Institute, I can't remember, which one was it?
Sugar Research Institute, yeah.
Yeah, these guys paid some Harvard researchers to publish science, quote unquote, that counteracts claims that sugar was bad for heart disease and shifts the blame to fat. We'll put a link to this in case you were hiding under a rock, but it was such huge news that it broke through the mainstream, and now all of my friends who have heard me talking about this stuff are now suddenly a lot more interested.
Yeah, everyone's posting it to me saying, "Have you heard about this?" I've heard it from like about 30 of my friends on Facebook.
Right, and it falls in line with the kind of stuff that we've been talking about here.
Yeah.
One other story is that I was asked to play, because I'm a musician, play and sing for an Alzheimer's fundraiser down at Ocean Beach in London, and it was great. And a lot of people came out, and when they got up to speak to rally the troops, about Alzheimer's and pay attention to this persistent, progressive, insipid disease, and we have to stick together to find a cure. Mostly they were concerned with raising money to pay unpaid healthcare workers who care for elderly and increasingly younger people with Alzheimer's disease. Nothing about diet, nothing about, anybody who's found a potential cure already.
Right.
And then I went looking, and it's embarrassing how much we've figured this out already.
I know. It's type 3 diabetes.
Yes.
It's incredible. Yeah.
And
we've been talking about it for over a decade. It's been in all the media. It's not like people have any excuse not to know this.
That's right. And there are even books. There's a book by Henry Lauren called Alzheimer's Solved. 5-star reviews on Amazon. There's another book by David Perlmutter called Grain Brain that explains it.
Yeah.
There are numerous studies that show that starving the brain of fat is a primary driver of Alzheimer's, as well as increased insulin sensitivity in the brain, which is an overexpression of glucose.
And the peak bodies are just ignoring it.
People are completely ignoring it. And
I feel the same way about diabetes.
Yeah. The cynical part of me said, all you people out there with Alzheimer's, you just keep struggling because you're making us all money.
It's incredible,
It just made me mad. All right. That's enough of me on my pedestal. Yeah. I hope everybody wisens up and we cure this stuff once and for all.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so the reason that we're calling this show Female, I'll tell the story real quick and then I'll introduce Brenda and Kim, is that we had so many comments in Facebook from women who are like, hey, you guys are dudes, but you only talk about dude stuff. Us women's out here have so many issues that you don't have when it comes to nutrition, ketogenic diet, as a therapy, all sorts of issues that we're affected by. How come you never talk about that? And of course, we there's probably an obvious reason.
We'd love to.
We don't have the experience, but we know people who do. So
We do.
we would like to invite two of our Facebook group admins and also very intense keto ninjas, Brenda Zorn and Kim Howerton, to the show. Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carl. Richard?
It's lovely to be here.
So what were some of the burning questions that you see over and over again in the Facebook group as they relate to women's issues?
Go ahead, Kim.
Sure. Well, so I think we all know that keto works in a lot of ways, and one of the main ways that it works is hormonally.
Yeah.
And so women's hormones, if you know any women, you might have noticed, are slightly more complicated than than sometimes men's hormones might be. Not every man, not every woman, but yeah, I don't want to blanket statement too much.
I would agree.
Yeah, and so, issues come up that women tend to deal with a lot, and there's a sort of an epidemic of something called PCOS, or polycystic ovarian condition,
Right.
that is definitely seen a lot in the keto community, and it's because PCOS is a insulin related condition. And so that affects a lot of women, and it affects fertility. It affects ability to lose weight. It gives you lovely side effects like facial hair, which is awesome for women, generally speaking.
Oh, no.
And then, it'll affect fertility. There's also a lot around menopause. There's, difficulty losing weight. There's, unique protein requirements. There's period stuff. Chocolate is involved in many of these questions that women have.
Chocolate, yes.
Chocolate, yes, Brenda says, yeah.
There's either like estrogen dominance or too much testosterone. Like all the hormones can get totally out of whack. And keto is one of the really awesome things that can help align those things.
Right,
and then,
totally mellowed out.
totally. And
Yes.
and then this is more a co-gender issue, but certainly diabetes is a major issue.
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
For everybody. There's things that are sort of not as well known that women get too, like lipidemia, where your legs get and butt, you get really big below the waist, but your upper body isn't, and it's this very specific condition. And so there's a bunch of stuff that are most generally in the woman category. And then just on a societal level, women are, men get it too, but women are really deeply, deeply immersed in dieting culture.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Right. Obsessive rules, fear of fat, dysfunctional restrictions.
Totally. And so going keto has some very unique challenges as a woman who's spent her whole life being told that she's a bad person if she eats fat.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's like fat phobia multiplied, really, isn't it?
Very much so.
Right. Yeah. Like you have to eat your fat while hiding.
It's a very easy mistake to make because sugar kind of does this. When you eat sugar, it goes right into your blood.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to fall into the trap of, well, when you eat fat, it probably goes right into your blood too.
Right. People totally don't understand keto. I think that's a pretty basic statement. When you're like, I eat a lot of fat, they're like, oh, that's terrible. But when you actually learn the science behind it, it's kind of the most awesome thing ever.
Brenda, what's been your experience about women's issues coming up in various groups? You've been doing Facebook groups for a long, long time.
Right. Ketogenic groups, probably about 3 years. One of the things that comes up is what's been coined as menvy, envy of men's weight loss, because sometimes they can much more quickly lose the weight than a woman can. And especially with couples, there can be quite a bit of tension there because the husband will be losing so much faster than the wife.
Do you think that's because they both eat the same thing and they maybe shouldn't?
Sure. Their metabolisms are very different. So, and everybody's, is different, but this is an issue that's come up quite a bit where they're very frustrated. You know, my husband's lost 40 pounds. I've only lost 10. What's going on?
We had a similar issue when Julie and I both started. I was metabolically deranged. I had type 2 diabetes. She didn't. She wasn't deranged, but she basically did the same diet just to join me. And she has lost, she's gone down to a normal body weight. She's lost like a third of her body weight. And I've lost about a quarter of my body weight. And I lost all of mine in the first 5 months, and she lost very little in the first 5 months. But she then continued on a gradual decline in body weight almost over a year and a half. And so we definitely lost at different rates. My body weight plummeted, and then I plateaued, and then I was just at a comfortable point from that point on. And hers was a gradual decline all the way along. So I love that term menvy. I've never heard that before.
I think I made that up.
Oh, yeah.
It's now a thing.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard, that's interesting you say that, Richard, because I was listening to a podcast and for the life of me cannot now remember which doctor it was that was talking, but I'll find it so I can give it to you guys for the show notes. And he said that in his practice, he's a bariatric doctor. He finds when he puts people on a ketogenic diet, oftentimes the men lose fast in the beginning and the women will not lose at the beginning because there's a lot of hormonal regulation that's happening and the body is busy.
Very busy.
Hormonal regulation is like the weight loss is going to have to wait. And then they'll lose more weight later. So it can be a very different schedule our bodies are on.
Well, that certainly happened to Julie and I know that it happened with Nanette and Baden, friends of ours that also did the diet. So that's an N of 4. It certainly has happened.
Another issue is women and fasting. There's some dogma floating around out there that women can't fast even. I think Dr. Fung mentions that in his book, that women shouldn't fast. And that's still going around. And there's a lot of things attached to that, such as, you're fasting, or do you have some kind of eating disorder, that kind of thing, that are very much attached to women.
Oh my God, you brought that up. I'm not going to say who this was, but I saw that very, very clearly in a woman that I know who, when she was younger, had bulimia. And not anorexia, but she was bulimic, and she definitely had an eating disorder. And
it can be very serious.
It is serious. And then when her daughter grew up and went keto, the big concern from the mother was that the daughter had an eating condition. And it's just funny how we project our own failures and fears onto those around us.
And that has a lot to do with how women in society try to conform to the perfect body type that they see on TV or magazines, and do extreme things to try to lose weight. And that's why sometimes the ketogenic diet, or if I told a few people that weren't ketogenic that I fasted 5 days a few weeks ago, and there was some concern from some people that didn't understand what it was.
Right.
And I had to explain, oh no, I'm fine. I think, and that's
they
the
don't
look
believe
they
you.
had on their face, like, oh no, something's wrong with you and you're doing something that is not safe.
Yeah, I think your mentality shifts so much when you're keto, when you really go keto, like all my life, I had such a diet mentality. I mean, even when I had said like, screw this, I'm not doing that, it was still in my head, right? Like I was rejecting diet mentality. My whole life was still sort of related to it. I was either for it or against it, right?
Sure.
And like on keto, it's the first time that part of my being has shut off.
Yep.
And so the decisions I make within keto are much more about like, how do I feel? How do I, am I starving? Am I satiated? Like I'm actually for the first time ever really able to hear my body in terms of hunger signals. And
you're not alone there. We have that same as men. We have that same clear clear signal.
Very important.
Yeah. And so I think for people outside of keto, it's sort of like, you're like, I can breathe underwater. And they're like, no, you can't. You know,
I
it's
know.
like they don't even understand the context.
So you guys got some messages from our listeners and from people asking questions about females. So we're going to hand over you the segment called Female!
Female!
We don't like puns or anything.
Oh, that's so awesome. That is so awesome.
And while we're at a light moment here, that background noise you hear is Brenda is outside the coffee shop stealing some Wi-Fi right now.
Oh, yes.
The things that we do for you, listeners.
That's right.
So Cindy in the Facebook group says, going out on a first date tonight and just discovered he eats keto. Score!
That's awesome.
A few people have said that they have. I've seen various people say we really should have a keto dating site.
Oh, wow.
But, you know, that's maybe coming in a while.
Congratulations. It's a bouncing baby bacon.
Yeah, it's right.
I've got to admit, it's a lot easier when you're keto together. And if you're dating, you know, I could only imagine that if one of you is ketoing while dating, that might be quite complicated. But it's awesome.
My partner is not keto, and so we definitely, you know, have that difference. But I mean, it's not even a thing. Like, I certainly think, you know, dating someone new, it's always good to have things in common. And keto is kind of an obsession for people when you get into it.
A little.
Like, my family was like, enough, enough, Kim. We get it. It's like Windex. Like, it cures everything. We understand.
I know.
But at the same time, like, if you're with somebody that's not keto, it's really pretty simple.
Yeah.
You know, you make whatever you want to make and add on what they want to make, or, you know, most of us are hopefully dating fully functioning adults that can make their own food, which is awesome too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You might think that cooking keto all the time, you know, you're just like one cracker away from gaining all your weight back. But that may be true in the first week or so. But when you're fat adapted, the last thing in the world you want is carbohydrates. And that's just the way it is. So there's no problem of, you know, your partner bringing home a pizza and eating it across the table from you, who's, you know, enjoying some glorious smoked lamb with fennel salad, for example, Richard.
Right? Or I just peel the cheese off the pizza and eat that.
Yeah, it's totally cool.
There's that too.
That works. There are many ways to make keto work.
Yeah.
So we also got a message from Carla on Facebook, and she says, a tip for ketoers with type 2 diabetes. Regarding talking to your doctor about the low-carb, healthy fat way of eating, if you start out the conversation by talking about a carb-restricted or carb-controlled diet, that will prime their ears to talk about old-school diabetic management, like my grandmother used to use, which very few of their patients seem interested in anymore. But it did work, and they know it worked. Don't even mention the high-fat part. If they start hounding you about the dangers of eating too much protein, you can tell them that you'll be watching your protein intake so it doesn't get out of control. And point out that the improved blood sugar control is a significant benefit for any diabetic. The time for the healthy fat or high fat part will be at your next 3 or 6 month check. When they do the blood work, if your lipid numbers are up, you can point to your improved A1C, fasting glucose, blood pressure and weight. I'm no expert, nor do I work in healthcare, but this is what I did with my PCP, primary care practitioner, and she was totally on board with it. I haven't gotten to my 6 month check yet, but I'm expecting her to continue to support my journey. Of course, your mileage may vary with your doctors. So that's an interesting thing. How do you talk to other people about your diet without upsetting them, or do you care about upsetting them?
Well, I have tried to explain to my doctor. I have. She didn't know what the word ketosis meant, so I'm in the process of finding a doctor who understands this a little bit more. I think the outline that Carla gave is excellent. Definitely, that's a good way to approach it. My doctor has, of course, already seen my A1C go back to normal from 11.5, and her and the people in the lab, even, because I used to go in there every 3 months, they kind of knew who I was, just stopped me and said, "What are you doing?" And I didn't, say the ketogenic diet. I just said I'm eating low carb. My doctor isn't really open to it. I suggested Volek and Finney's book,
Yep.
The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Living.
Sure.
And she just said, I don't really have time to read that,
Yeah.
which is very disappointing. So, especially after she saw my numbers, my goodness, my lipids were 1,200.
I do not have time to cure my patients. I am too busy doctoring.
Right? It's sad, really. It's sad.
Oh, well
Kinda sad.
said.
But, I'm excited to find a doctor who will pay a little bit more attention to what I'm doing
Well, that's the thing.
and look at my record.
We're not saying that you need to brainwash your doctor. That's not even possible. But what we're saying is you present the evidence, and if they completely ignore it and continue to give you a spiel without any science to back it up, that's not a good doctor. It's just the way it is. And so we like to say here, you either change your doctor or change your doctor.
Change your doctor.
Yeah, I do not have diabetes. I have a slightly elevated A1C when I started, which was not incredibly long ago, actually. But I do have pretty bad hypothyroidism and also PCOS. But when I was diagnosed with the hypothyroidism, I was seeing a doctor whose name is Sarah Gottfried in the Bay Area of California. And she wrote a book called The Hormone Cure. And she's a little more paleo than keto. But she she was like, the first thing she's like, get off grains. You can't have grains. No grains for you. Let's reduce your carbs. Let's get the carbs down and include healthy fats.
Well, good.
And so she was awesome. And then I recently switched to another endocrinologist because Dr. Gottfried has gotten very famous and no longer sees patients. And the first, I said, I started the conversation the exact same way she did, which was, so I've cut out all carbohydrates except for some vegetables. And she was like, well, that's awesome. Are you eating enough healthy fats? And I was like, okay, we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
We're going to be good friends.
Wow. I want a doctor to say that to me.
When you live in the Bay Area, the awesome part is it's a pretty paleo culture. The problem is everything costs about $10,000.
Yeah.
So, it's a balancing act.
I used to go to a doctor when I lived on the coast, and I won't mention his name, but he really wasn't across a lot of these things. And when I moved up to Canberra sort of a year ago, I went shopping for a new doctor, and I got a recommendation in one of the Low Carb Down Under news groups for the doctor that I currently go to, and she is awesome. She's more of the Michael Mosley 5-2 diet kind of, she does intermittent fasting and that kind of thing, rather than purely ketogenic. But it's wonderful when you get a doctor that's simpatico, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
yes.
awesome.
I'm completely jealous of you two and what you have right now, and I'm going to get that in place in my life. Absolutely.
Yeah, you'll get there.
My doctor gave me 6 months, and at 6 months, she said, okay, you're on your own. You just keep doing what you're doing.
Doing good.
Well, we can't have a female show without mentioning Shark Week.
Shark Week, what's that?
So,
Well, that's a term we've coined for the 28-day menstrual cycle, and I love it. I love that particular.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that started, but to me, it's like, okay, bloody pain is what
But
what I think of when I hear Shark Week, and that fits.
This is not I will not take credit for this particular term. I saw it in
Oh no,
in another keto group. I think it's
been around for a while. Yeah,
I'm a pretty plain talker. I just say your period, but apparently a
Okay.
lot of the world likes the term, a colloquialism. I mean, it used to be like Aunt Flo, and now it's turned into Shark Week.
yeah, I don't like that.
well, does it speak to the hormonal change?
Well, I mean, there's
All of it.
there's a lot of interpretations of why Shark Week. I always thought, there's blood in the water? I was like, that's pretty
I think
graphic.
that's probably it.
So what happens to
anyway.
you guys when that week happens? What changes
Oh,
in your
Lord.
appetite or your hormones or that you've observed?
Well, everybody's a little different, but I can tell you the day before it starts, I will eat everything in sight nonstop, and just don't seem to be satisfied. But luckily only one day for me of that.
Before I was keto, I had really rough periods. I had like a lot of cramps. I had a lot of cravings. I would basically want to I also got a lot of period related anxiety. This isn't something, so a lot of women get different mood disturbances with their period. what's more
Oh, yeah.
commonly known as rage will happen. But there's also anxiety can go up. Like I get kind of panicky, or I did.
Me too, for about a day or two before, and then I absolutely know it's on its way. That and wanting to eat nonstop for about a day.
Right. But since I've gone keto, like my first 2 months of keto, I noticed I had less cramps and a little less anxiety, but I was still like, I need to eat a lot of things, like all the things that I can get. And the past 2 periods, though, since I've been really keto, I was low carb for a long time, fell off the wagon, and then really went keto about 4 months ago. So I'm a shorter term ketoer. But a lifetime to go. But the past 2 periods, and especially this last one, it was like a breeze. I was shocked at how not horrible I felt. And I still felt like a little tired, a little worn out. I still kind of wanted things that I wanted, but it was totally manageable. But there is a lot of evidence, though, and women should be prepared for this, that when you start keto, your period can go wacky, like wacky. Like you might get heavier periods, you might get more frequent periods, you might have longer periods.
Right, you might have one that lasts 2 weeks instead of 5 days.
Right.
Whoa.
You might have one that's almost really difficult to control, and you need to be changing things every hour, which that's what I had before keto.
So this is a question for you, and forgive me because I don't have a lot of experience with this, but if when you were starting keto and, you know, it was your period, did you have strong carb cravings?
No.
No, not me. Just food in general. I don't even have really a chocolate craving, although I love it. But no, just food in general.
My first month, I really wanted chocolate, but I think it was just a knee-jerk thought. You know, like you have mental patterns where you're like, period, chocolate. It's like it's like a word association game.
It's an excuse, yeah, too.
And once I like really felt into it, I was like, you know, maybe I'll put some cocoa in my coffee today, but I'm not gonna like eat the Hershey's Forest.
Well, and you know as well as I do that chocolate is totally okay. It's just what kind of sweetener you mix it with.
Yeah. Yes.
Or eat that 86% or 90%, or I even dabble in 100% every now and then. Just a little piece. I love that.
I always keep the chocolate mousse in my fridge, and whenever I want that fix, I just go grab a spoon of it, and that's wonderful.
I do not think you need ovaries to feel like chocolate is an essential part of your life.
I don't think
not
so
at all.
either.
Yeah.
No.
Nah.
I made blueberry white chocolates this week, and they were awesome.
Oh,
They were beautiful.
You know, I'm going to call you
They're
on
pretty.
that, though. I'm calling you on that. Those are awesome, but white chocolate is not chocolate.
it's not
I'm just
chocolate.
going to say
No,
it.
it's not.
Cocoa
You're right.
butter.
No, you're right.
I'm calling you on that.
Isn't it made with cocoa butter?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's made with the coconut fat, but it's instead of using cacao solids, the cacao powder, it uses milk powder. But yeah,
I know we don't like to go
I love
too
it.
controversial on this show, but I had to assert myself in that moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
But I should finish I started by saying that your period may go really wacky.
At first?
Yeah, at first. It should, if it persists to be wacky, you should probably go get that checked, and it's probably no biggie, but it's always a good idea if you're bleeding a lot, you should make sure there's nothing actually wrong, but there probably isn't.
Oh, yeah. I used to get anemic. So, I mean, it can be a real issue, but not since keto. Since keto, I have what would be considered a normal menstrual cycle, but before it was very heavy. My iron got down to 4.5 once, and they wanted to do a blood transfusion.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
I had some real issues. But not anymore. I mean, now everything. Matter of fact, it actually, as you age and as the menopause thing starts to happen, what that really is just they get further apart until they stop. That had started to happen about 2 years before keto, and as soon as I went ketogenic, my age started to reverse, and now it's back to every 28 days.
Wow.
And that tells me a lot. That tells me a lot about hormonal.
You're pretty much changing everything up hormonally when you go
very
from
much
being
so.
a glucose burner to being a fat burner, and it's much you're moving to a much simpler milieu hormonally, and because insulin's not a major factor, and all of the other hormones that insulin choreographs with aren't as much of a factor. So it should be simplifying things
Totally.
in theory, but yeah.
It has for me.
And made you younger too, which is awesome.
Well, yes. When you get to be I'm older than Kim. I'm 52, and you see your
Not
doctor.
for long.
Oh, that's true. I turned 53 on the 29th, just 2 days after Richard. But
That's true.
But Richard, you're just turning 50, right?
51. I turn 51 next
51.
week. Yeah.
Oh, okay, 2 years
I
younger.
just turned 49.
I'm 40. I'm the youngest for once.
You're the baby.
Yes. But what I was going to say is that when you are closer to your 50s, and you go in for your regular yearly physical, one of the things they do check is your hormone levels, and one of the reasons is they want to see if you are in fact still fertile, because if you are, then they're going to want to talk to you about continuing birth control.
Right.
And when they've checked my levels the last 2 times I've had a full physical since keto, she said, you need to be careful because everything is just exactly as if you were 18.
Wow.
So yeah, and keto has done that.
It has, yeah.
Keto babies are a thing.
Are they?
Yes, they are. Absolutely. Oh, yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so your cycles are now regular. You might have been having inovulatory cycles, which is you bleed, but you're not actually releasing an egg. When your hormones get more regulated, your fertility goes up. And if you got used to being able to be sort of lazy about your protection methods with your husband, you might find you have one more child than you originally thought you'd have.
I see. So fertility increases.
It tends to, yeah.
Yes, very much so. Everything starts working right.
But your libido also increases, so that's
Double
that's a
whammy.
bad combination, yeah.
You have an increase in input and an increase in output.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, right.
that leads us to another question, which is keto while pregnant. And while most people seem a little horrified at that idea, evidence has shown now that the insulin resistance level of your child is really, really influenced by what the mother eats when pregnant. And so if the mother is eating a lot of sugar and a lot of high carbohydrate food, that is going to tend to give the baby a predisposition towards insulin sensitivity later in life.
Yeah, I found that super interesting.
Right, I read that article.
Especially an insulin-sensitive mother who is used to eating quite a lot of carbohydrate food and managing them appropriately. If the father is genetically insulin resistant, the child has a good chance of inheriting the father's characteristics and then living in a womb that is bathed with sugar and insulin all the time. So,
and then also, Richard, you went on to say that now if you've got a mother who is insulin sensitive, they're the caretakers. They're the one that are going to harp on the kids about their diet and exercise and stuff.
Right.
And their metabolism is completely different than the kids.
Yeah. And so everything that worked for the mother, the mother was always able to lose weight by, reducing fat and just doing a little bit more exercise and all these strategies that worked for her. As her child starts getting fatter, she's going to start trying to employ these strategies, and of course, they're not going to work.
And it's going to make it worse.
I've seen this pattern. Carl and I both fit into this pattern, and I've seen it happen.
But it could happen the other way, too. It could happen that the father is insulin sensitive and the mother is insulin resistant, and the father is the one that has success and is bringing up, giving the wrong message.
I have an insulin-resistant mother and an insulin-sensitive father. My father can drop weight by cutting. He can do the low-fat thing and lose weight. And he's in his 70s, and his A1. What is it called? The A1C is still in the non-pre-diabetic range.
Nice.
And he's still very healthy in that way. The thing is, though. What I think is crazy is that gestational diabetes is like one of the worst things. I mean, there are a lot of bad things, but it's a very common, very bad thing for a woman to deal with during pregnancy.
It is pretty common, and it is, it's dangerous.
And
too.
it's very dangerous. Not just does it create an insulin resistant child, which is, thanks mom. It's
Just to clarify, gestational diabetes, let's define that, because it could,
Sure.
if you don't know what it is, you could think, oh, that's giving diabetes to the child, but it's really for the mother, right? During pregnancy?
Right, yes.
a lot of women in pregnancy that are not diabetic pre-pregnancy develop diabetes while pregnant.
Right, that's why it's called gestational.
Yeah, and then when they're not pregnant anymore, it sort of goes away, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and
My sister had that, yep.
And so, it's this crazy talk thinking we have to feed these pregnant women like a ton of carbs.
Yeah.
Right.
So that, they can potentially have, life-threatening complications with pregnancy. It's not a good equation. And I do know several people that have done keto pregnancies, happy little clams they've been. And, it's definitely something you have to manage with your physician.
But we need more stories. We need more women to speak up and contact us and tell us your experience of being pregnant with on the ketogenic diet and your
Brenda and
experience.
I would love to do a show on keto pregnancy and keto infancy. Breastfeeding is also comes up.
Breastfeeding,
We'd love that. We'd love to have some keto moms.
Well, we think we would like to give you guys this platform as often as you want to explore these
Absolutely.
issues. There's absolutely no reason why we can't do that.
Awesome.
Women are going to love you for that, yes.
Well, we're all humans.
Well, we kind of, when we first started the show, we chose the name Two Keto Dudes because it was a cool name,
And the domain was available.
Yeah, and we kind of painted ourselves into a corner, because there's half of the world aren't necessarily dudes, and so
That's right.
The dude does abide.
I think dude is a gender neutral term, but then I'm Australian, so I'm likely to have it's an American term, so
Dude.
you don't want me defining dude.
I'm from California. Anyone can be a dude in my mind.
Absolutely.
Totally.
There you go.
Yeah, well, in Minnesota, they think I'm nutty when I call everybody a dude, but okay, whatever.
Well, one last piece of mail. This isn't a question, but Sandra says, school is back in session. I teach high school kids. They notice and comment on everything. When they last saw me, I had lost 10 pounds. Now it's a total of 45, and I happen to be Cuban American, and they call me Cuban Barbie. What? Okay.
That is awesome. You have to get that on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Cuban Barbie.
Cuban Barbie.
That's a great amount of weight to lose. Congrats on that. That's really, no wonder they noticed.
Well, in keeping with the Two Keto Dudes tradition, it's time for you ladies to give us your recipes! Recipes. Gingivitis.
Okay, who's going to go first here? I know Kim has got a recipe for something I have never tried, and I had no idea the ingredients it contained.
What you got, Kim?
Is it lemon curd?
Lemon curd. So I love lemon curd because it's a really versatile thing. You can keep it in your fridge, and then you can use it in all sorts of things. You can mix it with whipped cream, and suddenly it's like a lemony, fluffy thing. You can fill a tart shell with it, a keto tart shell, top it with whipped cream, and you got a really impressive party dessert. Or, if you have a spoon, you have a ready-made fat bomb at all times.
Yep.
Really, just a spoon. Or,
Spoon check.
or it could be your own container. You could simply dip from it in any way you want. So, lemon curd is a pretty simple thing, but it really impresses everybody. So here's what you're going to need. You're going to need a medium-sized saucepan, a whisk, a mesh strainer, and a bowl. Now, if you need this lemon curd to be ready soon, you're going to make that bowl an ice bath bowl, but where you put a bowl in another bowl with ice in the lower bowl. It'll cool it faster. That I found I don't always do that. You can just put it in the fridge to chill. It just takes a few more minutes. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a half a cup of lemon juice, 4 egg yolks, and a half a cup of Swerve confectioner's sugar or the sugar substitute of your choice, but I really love Swerve. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
So I put that in the saucepan and I turn it on medium and I just stir it to combine. And as it comes to sort of a warm heat, I add a half a cup of Kerrygold unsalted butter.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
And I let that melt.
Is that diced up? The butter?
No, I just throw the whole thing in there. I mean, it's
Okay.
it's a half a bar of the size I usually find in the United States. Usually the bricks of Kerrygold that I find come in a cup amount. So you want a half a cup amount. You could use another kind of butter too.
So far, it sounds like lemon meringue pie filling.
Yeah, it's the same thing. That is lemon.
So far, it sounds very yummy.
And then you
Yeah.
just let the butter melt and you keep stirring because you don't want the egg to cook in there. Oh, by the way, if you get lazy, just throw the whole egg in. You don't even have to separate them. But I prefer it to have a little higher fat content and just be the egg yolks. Or rather, not a little lower protein content, I should say. And I just keep stirring it until it thickens. It'll take about 8 minutes. It never comes to a boil, but it goes from sort of liquidy to sort of like a thicken. It'll coat the back of a spoon thickness. And then take it off the heat and strain it. So you don't need to like strain the juice or anything before you throw it in there because you're straining it as a last step. It'll strain out any little bits of egg that happen to cook, any seeds, anything like that. Strain it through the mesh strainer into the bowl, either the chilled bowl or not chilled. And then put it in the fridge to finish chilling. You can put it in smaller containers or leave it in the big container, cover it, and it's good for about a week. And you can do whatever you want with it.
Nice.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, I would definitely eat that with a spoon.
Oh,
Wow.
and I do a half a cup of sweetener because I like my lemon curd on the tart side.
Mm-hmm.
If you like things more on the sweet side, obviously you can add more. You can stick your finger in it and taste it, or a spoon if you're actually wanting to be sanitary. And you can also do it with lime juice if you want lime curd.
Oh, yeah.
And top it with some zest if you want to get all fancy.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fancy.
Miss Fancy Pants. That's awesome. And I love the whole stirring whipped cream into that. Or,
Oh,
it's
you know,
yeah.
if you really want the lemon meringue experience, you can make some meringue
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
and, just put that in the
Yeah,
oven.
totally.
Use the egg white from the eggs and
What a good idea.
And you swerve, and then
Yeah.
you got your egg
Do
white.
it, Richard. Do it and post a photo.
Little almond flour crust.
Yeah, a almond flour crust with
Yeah.
lots of butter. I mean, there are just so many things you can do with this lemon curd, and it really takes like from start to finish like 10 to 15 minutes. So it's an easy like, oh crap, people are coming over. You add a little bit of heavy cream to it and you have lemon pudding. I mean, you can do all sorts of things with it.
You have a link to this online somewhere, right, Kim?
It will be up. It will be absolutely.
Put it on our blog.
I will put it on your blog. And you can also find it on Instagram at The Ketonist.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Brenda, what you got?
Oh, well, I have something a little unusual and sometimes puts people off when I tell them, but hang in there.
Okay.
I have a recipe for what I call pork rind pancakes.
Pork rind pancakes.
Yes.
That's crazy talk.
It's crazy talk. It is. And to a lot of people, it's like, gross. No, just hang on. Keep an open mind. Okay. I came up with this a couple years ago. I had seen pork rinds used for a couple different types of desserts. And I thought, well, I was using pork rinds mostly for breading, like a substitute for breadcrumbs and bread chicken and fry that, or a substitute for breadcrumbs and meatloaf. And it worked really well. But I'm thinking, I wonder if I could use this kind of as a flour, because when you cook it in these other things like breading chicken tenders, you don't taste the pork rind taste. You don't taste the pork taste at all. And so I thought, so I come up with this recipe for a pancake batter made with crushed pork rinds. And, keep an open mind. If you miss pancakes, you'll love me forever after trying these. Absolutely. Nearly carb-free. You get about 3 grams of carbohydrate in the entire recipe from just the eggs, the cinnamon, and the cream. And the texture is remarkably similar to wheat pancakes. All right, here we go. You need a cup of crushed pork rinds, not powdered, not dust. Don't put it in the food processor. I usually put it in a large Ziploc bag and then smack it with a rolling pin, or you can roll anything over it. But you want coarse breadcrumb style. About 1.5 ounces. They don't weigh much.
Now, did you say you get the salted ones or unsalted ones?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The plain pork rinds that are for snacking, so they do have some salt on them, and that actually adds to the recipe.
Yeah, it does. I put salt in my pancakes all the time.
Yes, so absolutely, that's something I needed to mention. Make sure they're plain pork rinds; they don't have any seasoning on them.
Yeah.
Make sure they're not cracklings; those are the ones with the big chunks of fat and they're hard.
Yeah.
You need the crushable pork rinds that just really have two ingredients: pork skin and salt. Okay, so that's about a cup of crushed pork rinds, or about 1.5 ounces. 2 tablespoons of heavy whipping cream. 2 large beaten eggs. A teaspoon of vanilla extract. And a teaspoon of cinnamon. Now you just mix all this together and you let it set for a few minutes to thicken up. Maybe a couple, 2-3 minutes. Then you fry about a 1/4 cup of the batter in a hot greased pan, probably about medium heat. They don't bubble up around the edges like wheat pancakes did.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of lift them and check them for brownness underneath, and then when they seem brown enough, flip them over. It makes about 3 large pancakes, and they're literally 1 gram of carbohydrate each, and lots of healthy fat.
Awesome.
So was this the recipe that Nanette put in a waffle iron?
Yes.
And she made waffles out of it.
Yes. Yep. You can vary. Some people add sweetener to the batter. You could do that. You can top it with sugar-free syrup. There are a lot of sugar-free syrups out there that have that maltitol or maltitol. That causes problems for a lot of people, and even blood sugar issues. But there are also pancake syrups out there that have sucralose, and there is a really awesome maple syrup recipe on rule.me.
Oh, cool.
Or at Craig Clark's site. Yes, it's a very, very fantastic recipe for syrup. Or you can just put, butter on it and eat them, or a little more cinnamon. Some sugar-free jam.
Or some lemon curd.
Oh, yeah, so good.
Lemon curd can be put on everything.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel it,
I'm eating lemon curd with bacon right now.
It's not a bad idea.
I'm going to try that now.
Sweet and salty. Hey?
Yeah.
Exactly. I like to dip bacon in melted 86% chocolate. So there we go.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
And I know our listeners are going to look forward to hearing you on a regular basis. Yay!
Yay!
Yay.
All right.
Well, you can't shut me up, so I'm happy to do it anytime.
And nor would we want to. So, of course, if you have anything you want to tell us, something we said wrong, something you don't agree with, some more research that you found to support or refute what we've said, send it by email to dudes@twoketodudes.com or post it on our website at twoketodudes.com. Or you can find us on Twitter at 2ketodudes and Instagram at 2ketodudes as well.
Or you can find our blog at blog.2keto.com. Or you can come and visit us on Facebook. There's over 4,000 people in the Facebook forum, and you can get there at fb.2keto.com.
You can find our recipe archive at recipes.2keto.com. And that's about all I got memory for right now. we got to get out of here. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Keep calm and keto on.
Keep calm and keto on.
And we'll see you next time on 2 Keto Dudettes.
And the ladies.
Don't forget the ladies.